Hey everybody, Tom Barnas, Stories from the 78 podcast edition. Thanks for watching and listening. Subscribe if you like on the YouTube page or Spotify or wherever you get your music and all that fun stuff. This is a site where we talk about all things Chicago, except for last week when I went to Detroit to find some wood laminate for my floor that leaked because, you know, the middle of the summer in the Midwest, it gets really hot and humid. The air conditioning goes crazy. And that little drain that the condenser that drips, there's like a drain that goes outside or into a sewer. Well, that flooded or clogged, caused a mini flood, ruined the floor. And the only spot in the country to get it was in Detroit. So it kind of worked out. We went on a little road trip to Detroit, had a good time. But this week, back in Chicago, the DNC was going on. And if you don't know what the DNC is, the Democratic National Convention. And I work for CBS in Chicago, and we were there every single day. And this is not a political thing at all. I'm not making this about politics. I'm making this about the democratic process of nominating a president and seeing that process up close and personal. And it's something I never thought in my life that I would ever do or be a part of, just because, there's only 20,000 seats in that stadium. So 20,000 people get to go in there and be a part of it, and millions would love to be a part of it. That's why they're watching on TV and whatnot. But I got to do it, and it was great. And to see it, be a part of it, feel the energy in the building of the United Center. It was a cool Chicago moment. It really was. And, except for a few jagoffs that were trying to protest outside of what they said they were going to do, it was pretty tame. There wasn't a lot of brutality on either end. The Chicago police handled themselves exceptionally well. They didn't take the bait. Certainly people tried to, try to recreate what happened in the 60s in Chicago for the DNC, but that wasn't the case at all. And I'm very proud of my city and proud of, the United States and how we kind of do this democratic process of nominating a president. And it was the best of it all. You know what I mean? So it was really a lot of fun to be a part of. Long hours, because you got to go through 9 different levels of security. The Secret Service kind of controlled the inside of the United Center. So the Chicago police were on the outside. Homeland Security and the Secret Service were on the inside. So it was a little intense getting inside and out of there sometimes. It took some people 2.5 hours to get in once the afternoon and the daybreak broke. We were fortunately enough to be there at 2 o'clock in the morning till noon. But it was a great time. It really was. And I was proud to be there to do it. And in that process, though, I did a couple stories the week before, knowing about the convention and knowing that I would have no time to talk. I am coming off of the convention right now as I'm doing this. I've been up since 2 o'clock in the morning, but I wanted to do it now because I wanted to be fresh in my mind about it. And I would say the biggest takeaway from the event itself, I would, just thinking about, is just the admiration people have for people they want to elect, and being in a building, like I said, either side of it, is really something special to see, feel, and be a part of. And I'm just more proud of Chicago and the way we looked. We looked awesome. So, and to be in a spot where, the first female South Asian African-American president nominates, the whole thing. The story is unbelievable. Politics aside, it's a great story, and that's what I'm sticking with. But during the week, I posted a few stories that I thought were really poignant for what was going on in terms of weather in Chicago. Things are changing. It was a little chilly this week, and I don't want to do anything politics. I wanted to give people a reason why to come out to our city and check things out. So the first thing I did was Chess Records in the South Loop. Chess Records, if you're not familiar, if you like Chicago blues, then you should know what Chess Records is. Chess Records on Michigan Avenue in the South Loop. It's been around since, I believe, the 60s. That's when it kind of really started recording music in its heyday. And Chess Records, was just a powerhouse of blues music. You're talking Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Little Walter, Sonny Boy Williams, Willie Dixon, even Chuck Berry and, many others recorded there, called it home. So much so that the band Rolling Stones loved Chicago blues so much that the Stones came to Chess Records, right? And the story goes is that the Stones wanted to come, and there's Willie Dixon and Muddy Waters. They were there, right? And when those guys would come to Chess Records, the blues guys, they were always dressed up. They always dressed to the nines. They dressed in suits. This is the way they did things back then. And they um intimidated the Stones, because the Stones, and the reason why, according to the woman that tells the story, is that when the Rolling Stones came, they weren't huge yet. They were known, they were well known, but they weren't what they are now, right? So the Stones come to Chess Records, and there's Willie Dixon helping them load up their gear up the stairs, and he's in a full suit, and he's helping the Rolling Stones up the stairs. Funny thing is that the Stones were also in full suits, because they knew this about these blues musicians. So to be respectful, they wore suits themselves, shirt and ties. And that was very non-Rolling Stones, right? And the story goes, they get into the main room of the recording studio, the Studio B, I believe it is. And at 2120 South Michigan, that is where the Stones started recording a song called 2120 South Michigan, and they forgot the words. And it is now historically one of the only Rolling Stones songs that don't have any lyrics. And legend has it, is the reason why it doesn't have any lyrics is because the Stones were so intimidated they forgot them and didn't want to sing in front of their heroes, which is just a great story about a great record company and a recording studio that is Chess Records. Started by two guys that were not born here in the States. They came over, I believe. Let me see if I can do this right. I'm looking at my story right now. I mean, forgive me, I've been up for like 12 hours or 24 hours. The immigrants after World War II, they lived right off of Cottage Grove. I'm reading more about it. I should know this. But in Bronzeville, they were at 4750 Cottage Grove, and they did some other stuff, but they bought Chess from somebody else. But Chess is their where they were from, I believe. And so it wasn't pronounced Chess. It was like Chess Records. Either way, the whole story is on the website. I'm not going to go into it just because there's so much there, and it's not a very easily summed up story. But Leonard and Phil Chess are the owners of this spot, and they certainly made it their own and made it something that was special by the way that the band was, or by the way that the studio was designed, from the acoustics. To this day, there are musicians that say that is the best sounding room in all of music. Better than Stax, better than Motown. It was Chess Records in Chicago. Howlin' Wolf, another one that played there. Sorry, I just bought my computer. Another one that played there that thought it was amazing. Bo Diddley. I mean, the list goes on and on. You get a full tour of the spot, go in the recording studio, and then you'll see the area where the Stones were intimidated by the blues legends in the recording booth. It's just a great story. And I don't know. I just love it. And I'm so proud that it is a Chicago story. And yeah, Chess Records, man. It's a fun story to check out on the south side of Chicago, right off of Michigan Avenue. A couple other things, because the week was what it was, and I didn't want to go far. I went to two new cafes in my general neighborhood, which doesn't happen. Norwood Park and Gladstone Park, and I'm in like South Edgebrook, right? But there's a place called what's it called? I can't remember anything. Infused, no. Baked by Jane is the new spot in Gladstone Park. Used to be an old fried chicken place, but this woman used to just be that person that would always have this amazing. She's like the woman at work would bring the cookies that tasted like they were straight out of a bakery, and you look at her like, well, you should open up your own bakery. She did that, and it's such a Chicago story because she used to work for the Chicago Park District. She retired from the Chicago Park District, and she's not like retirement age. She's young and she's pretty. She's doing her thing, but she retires from the Chicago Park District. Basically asked her boyfriend and her family to help her out and get this business up and running. She opens up a spot, and it becomes like a place that people love instantly. She has regulars, and they've been open for 6 weeks. That's what kind of place this is. So much so that they serve something called friendship bread, which her father used to like make all the time, to the point where they were like, this is lame, Dad. Why do you do this? Nobody wants to eat us. Like, so they stopped making it. And then for some reason she started serving, and people love it. And she goes into the story of what friendship bread is. They also do scones because, the Irish love their scones, she said. And the community is really telling her what they want versus the other way around, which is very Gladstone Park of them. And it's just a fun addition to the neighborhood. Another fun addition I love Halloween. October's coming up, right? And what better than to just, do all things fall? And that's what happens at the October Cafe. It is fall theme all year long. They have pumpkin spice latte all year if you love that. I also believe so does Starbucks. I think you just have to ask for it. But either way, um, it's all things fall, Halloween. They're vegan options. They have coffee flights, which I think is rad, man. Because if you like bougie coffee, you wouldn't like. I mean, people love wine and they have wine flights all the time, beer flights. I don't know why this is a thing that is so novel, but it's needed. Is coffee flights. So yeah, you should check out October Cafe. It's right off of the Norwood Park Metro line, so you can take the Metro, get off at the Union Pacific Northwest line, get off in Norwood Park, and you will be there in 3 minutes. You just walk from the train station. It's in the circle part of Norwood Park, right off of Avondale, right there in Raven. Cool spot, a really cool spot, and I don't know, it's worth doing. Um, I did a story about cake, and I'm not talking about the cake you eat. I'm talking about uh, how do I say this? It's an alternative collection of comics. It's the Chicago Alternative Comic Expo cake. And it's got superheroes in it. I don't want you to think there's not superheroes in it, but it's more about a weekend dedicated to the independent comics and the community, offering unique platforms for artists and small presses, publishers, and readers to connect on a smaller level. So not Marvel or DC or all those, but more like independent things. But it could be horror comics, it could be anime comic. I mean, anything goes. But I talked to one of the owner or one of the coordinators of it all, and it's pretty cool, man. And it's in Bridgeport. They started up in North Halstead area, and now it's down in Bridgeport. And they even have shuttles from the Red Line to the space. So I think you should check it out. It was worth doing the story. I loved it. I love my time with it, and yeah, it was a fun thing. I didn't know about it, and it's been going on for 12 years. So I was kind of pissed that I didn't know about it. But that's why I do this website, to check things out, different things. So if you're looking for something unique, look up Cake Festival in Chicago. It's a fun thing. They, food vendors. It's all run by nonprofit, completely volunteer based. So it's just people who love comic books, and I think it's just a wonderful thing to talk about and lift up, if you will. And speaking of arts and entertainment, a Chicagoan passed recently, and his name was Don De Grazia. I want to say that right, but I've been up for so long, I'm probably not saying it right. Grazia. Don De Grazia. That's it. Sorry, it just popped in my brain. He was a writer and professor at Columbia University, and he passed. And the irony of it all is that he played on a softball team called the Lee Elia Experience, and the logo was the squirrel that was smashed in the concrete in Roscoe Village. That was the logo in the Lee Elia Experience. If you don't know who Lee Elia is, you got to look up Lee Elia Rant, Chicago Cubs. And it's one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life when it comes to baseball rants that have happened in baseball. It is fucking amazing. It's the best way to describe it. And the sad irony is that this guy was so Chicago in so many ways and touched so many lives. He worked at the Metro. He wrote a book called American Skin about a person running away and joining a skinhead group, neo-Nazi skinhead group, and it won. I mean, a gentleman that started the what was the name of the organization, called it a masterpiece, like the American. Oh, I'm going to find it right here as I'm talking to you. I mean, the guy went to the National Guard. He left home. He wrote about jocks and everything in high school. He got in trouble for it. Then he teamed up with the guy that wrote Train Spotting, Irvin Welsh, and they wrote a play together that won an award in Edinburgh called The Creatives. I mean, the man was, he was just a Chicago guy, salt of the earth. I talked to Joe Shanahan over at the Metro about him because he was a person that worked at the Metro. They don't use the word bouncers there, but he was he just was the person that you loved, and they called him Knuckles, is what Joe told me. And the reason why they called him Knuckles is because he can use them. And if he needed to, he would. But he pushed people. He pushed his friends. He pushed his students, and they admire this man. And he died on the softball field at Horner Park, having some kind of heart issue. They didn't really get into what he died of. The sad fact of the matter is that he died. He left behind his wife, Sierra, his daughter, Daisy, who was only 18 months old at the time. So Joe and I just talk about him, and Joe talks about the celebration of life at the Metro that happened on October 25th. And you should look him up. Don De Grazia. He was just a fun guy that was a teacher at Columbia, wrote some books, inspired lots of people, salt of the earth guy in Chicago. And if you look him up, you'll see some of his pictures. But I mean, it was just like the picture of the softball uniform is just hilarious. But what I was talking about before is that Donald G. Evans, founding executive director of the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame, called the book a masterpiece. So this guy knew what he was doing. He could write, and even Joe called him a wordsmith, where he would be better at words, but he could also use his hands, if you know what I mean. So we had a great story about that, and I'd rather have you hear it from Joe than me talk about it and regurgitate the whole thing. So go over to the website, and you'll see Don De Grazia, author, died at 56 years old, author of American Skin, Columbia College teacher, and softball mate. And he was the pitcher on a co-ed softball team, and he passed away on a softball field. So you can't get more Chicago than that. And Godspeed to Don. I didn't know him. I just thought this story was incredible, and I was honored to have a talk with my friend Joe about it for this story from the 78. So you'll see and hear more of those on this podcast as we move along through time. But this one's dedicated to Don De Grazia, because it should be, and it's the least I can do for the man. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I will see you next week.